Case 1. Rhonda Belle Martin, the waitress who poisoned her family. Picture Montgomery, Alabama in the 1930s. A pleasant-looking waitress serves coffee with a smile. Her name is Rhonda Belle Martin. Born November 4, 1906, she seems ordinary, unremarkable. But behind that smile lurks Alabama's most prolific female serial killer. Over 14 years, Rhonda systematically murders 6 members of her own family. Not with guns, not with knives, with arsenic-laced rat poison mixed into their daily drinks and food. Her first victim is her own daughter, 3-year-old Emmeline Garrett. The year is 1937. Little Emmeline asks her mother for a simple glass of water. Rhonda later confesses she poisoned the child on impulse. Just an impulse to murder her own baby. Emmeline dies in agony as the poison burns through her tiny body. But Rhonda doesn't stop there. 2 years later, in 1939, she kills her second husband, George W. Garrett. She serves him poisoned whiskey. He trusts her completely. He drinks it. He dies. In 1940, another daughter, Anna Carolyn, becomes her third victim. The child drinks poisoned milk. She's gone. 1943 brings the murder of yet another daughter, Ellen Elizabeth. Same method. Poisoned milk. The little girl never had a chance. 1944. Rhonda turns her attention to her own mother, Mary Frances Gibbon, the woman who gave her life. She poisons her mother's coffee. Mary dies without ever suspecting her own daughter murdered her. And then comes Claude Carroll Martin, Rhonda's fourth husband. April 27, 1951. She poisons him too. 6 victims. 6 family members. 6 people who trusted her completely. Here's where it gets even more twisted. After murdering Claude, Rhonda marries his own son. That's right. She marries her former stepson, Ronald Martin, becoming both his wife and formerly his stepmother. But Rhonda's luck is about to run out. In late 1955, Ronald becomes severely ill. Doctors at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Biloxi, Mississippi, aren't buying the natural illness story. They send hair samples to a Washington laboratory. The results come back positive for chronic arsenic poisoning. Investigators immediately begin exhuming bodies. They start with Claude Martin's corpse. What they find is shocking even to experienced forensic experts. Claude's organs, hair, and fingernails contain enough arsenic to kill several people. The evidence is overwhelming. Undeniable. March 1956. Rhonda Belle Martin is arrested in Mobile, Alabama. For 3 straight days, investigators interrogate her. She finally breaks. She signs a detailed confession admitting to all 6 murders. Her trial begins June 4, 1956 in Montgomery Circuit Court. Judge Eugene Carter presides. The trial lasts exactly 2 days. The jury hears the horrifying evidence. Poisoned children. Poisoned husbands. A poisoned mother. They deliberate for 3 hours and 10 minutes. Guilty. Death penalty. October 11, 1957. 12:10 a.m. Rhonda Belle Martin, now 50 years old, walks to Alabama's electric chair. She clutches a Bible in her hands. Her lips move silently, reciting the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. 12:16 a.m. She's pronounced dead. Alabama's angel of death is no more. But here's the haunting part. Investigators find a note tucked inside her Bible. Rhonda's final words reveal a chilling mystery. She writes, I want my body to be given to some scientific institution, especially to see if someone can find out why I committed the crimes I have committed. I can't understand it, for I had no reason whatsoever. There is definitely something wrong. Think about that. Even Rhonda herself couldn't explain why she murdered 6 people she was supposed to love and protect. She had no financial motive for most of the murders. No clear reason. Just an unexplainable compulsion to poison her own family members. Her body was never donated to science as she requested. Family members in Montgomery claimed it instead. Rhonda Belle Martin holds a grim distinction. She was the last woman executed in Alabama until 2002. That's a span of 45 years. 6 victims. 14 years of murder. 1 electric chair. This case opened the door to a dark corridor of maternal evil in Alabama that continues to this day. But Rhonda was just the beginning. Case 2. Judith Ann Neelley, the youngest woman sentenced to death in American history. 18 years old. Most people that age are graduating high school, maybe starting college, figuring out their lives. Not Judith Ann Neelley. At 18, She became the youngest woman ever sentenced to death in the United States. Her crime? The torture murder of a 13-year-old girl. And the details of what she did will absolutely horrify you. Judith was born June 7, 1964 in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. At just 15 years old, she runs away and marries a man 11 years older than her. His name is Alvin Howard Neelley Jr. He's 26. She's 15. Already, warning bells should be screaming. This relationship launches a multi-state crime spree that terrorizes the Southeast. September 25, 1982. Rome, Georgia. A group of children from the Ethel Harpst Home for Neglected Children visits the Riverbend Mall. Among them is 13-year-old Lisa Ann Neelley. She's separated from her group. That's when she encounters Judith Neelley. Judith later admits she and Alvin had been combing the streets for a week trying to pick up a young girl. Lisa is their target. Judith lures the trusting teenager into her car with promises of help. But there's no help coming. Only horror. Judith drives Lisa across state lines to a motel in Scottsboro, Alabama. For 3 days, this child is held captive. 3 days of terror. 3 days of abuse. 3 days that end in unthinkable brutality. September 28, 1982. Judith forces Lisa into the car again. They drive to Little River Canyon in DeKalb County, Alabama. It's a remote area. Beautiful cliffs. Flowing water. No witnesses. Judith handcuffs 13-year-old Lisa to a tree. The child is helpless, terrified, begging for her life. And then Judith does something so evil, so calculated, it defies comprehension. She injects Lisa Ann Neelley with liquid drain cleaner. Not once, not twice. 6 separate injections. Both sides of her neck, both arms, both buttocks. Judith is trying to kill this child in the most painful way imaginable. Lisa screams in agony as the caustic chemical burns through her tissue. But the drain cleaner doesn't kill her fast enough for Judith. So she pulls out a .38 caliber pistol. She shoots 13-year-old Lisa in the back. The girl collapses. And then Judith pushes her body over the canyon cliff. Lisa Ann Neelley falls to her death. Broken, tortured, murdered. What does Judith do next? She drives to Gadsden with Alvin. They have breakfast. Like nothing happened. Like they didn't just torture and murder a child. Over the next 24 hours, Judith calls police 3 times to report the body's location. She's playing games, getting thrills from her crime. 6 days later, October 4th, 1982, the Neelleys strike again. They abduct another couple from a Rome street. Janice K. Chapman and her fiancé John Hancock. Judith shoots John, but he survives. He identifies the Neelleys to Detective Kenneth Kynes. A massive manhunt begins. 3 weeks later, October 9th, 1982, the Neelleys are arrested in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. The evidence against them is overwhelming. Judith's trial begins March 7th, 1983 in Fort Payne, Alabama. The prosecution presents a mountain of evidence. Eyewitness testimony, forensic proof, Judith's own statements. The jury finds her guilty. They actually recommend life imprisonment instead of death. But Judge Randall Cole overrides the jury's recommendation. He sentences 18-year-old Judith Ann Neelley to death by electrocution. She's the youngest woman sentenced to death in American history. The year is 1983. But here's where Alabama politics enters the story. January 15, 1999. It's Governor Fob James's final day in office. In a controversial decision that haunts Alabama to this day, he commutes Judith's sentence from death to life with the possibility of parole. Lisa Ann Neelley's family is devastated, outraged, betrayed by their own government. Fast forward to May 2018. Judith becomes eligible for parole. Lisa's family mobilizes. They pack the parole hearing. They tell the board about the 13-year-old girl who was tortured and murdered. The Alabama Board of Pardons and Paroles deliberates for exactly 55 seconds. 55 seconds. Parole denied. May 2023. Another parole hearing. Governor Kay Ivey writes directly to the board. Quite simply, Miss Neelley should not be allowed to set foot outside of an Alabama prison. This time, the board deliberates for 3 minutes. Parole denied again. Judith Ann Neelley remains incarcerated at Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women in Wetumpka, Alabama. She's now 60 years old. Her next parole hearing is scheduled for May 2028. Lisa Ann Neelley would be 55 years old today if Judith hadn't tortured her to death at 13. Her family continues fighting to keep Judith behind bars. And Alvin? He died in a Georgia prison on October 21, 2005. He never faced justice for Lisa's murder. But Judith lives on, year after year, while her victim remains forever 13. Case 3. Heather Leavell-Keaton, the college student who killed her stepchildren. Merit Scholarship student. Spring Hill College in Mobile, Alabama. Smart. Educated. Promising future. That's how 22-year-old Heather Leavell-Keaton appeared to the outside world. But behind closed doors, she was systematically torturing 2 small children to death. And the methods she used are absolutely barbaric. October 2008. Heather meets a man named John Joseph DeBlaise on MySpace. He's married with 2 young children. 4-year-old Natalie Alexis DeBlaise and 3-year-old Jonathan Chase DeBlaise. Their biological mother, Corinne Heathcock, last sees her children on November 17, 2009. She has no idea it's the last time she'll ever see them alive. DeBlaise gains custody of the children and moves in with Heather. Almost immediately, she begins what she calls discipline. But this isn't discipline. This is torture. She duct tapes the children's hands. She duct tapes their mouths shut. She locks them in closets. DeBlaise's own mother, and becomes so disturbed by Heather's treatment of the children that she demands Heather leave her home in July 2009. But Heather doesn't leave the children alone. She escalates. March 4, 2010. 4-year-old Natalie does something that angers Heather. We don't know what. It doesn't matter. Nothing a 4-year-old does deserves what happens next. Heather wraps duct tape around Natalie's tiny hands and feet. She stuffs a sock in the child's mouth as a gag. And then she locks 4-year-old Natalie inside a black suitcase. She puts the suitcase in a closet. And she leaves her there. For 14 hours. Imagine being 4 years old. In total darkness. Unable to move. Unable to breathe properly. Unable to scream for help. For 14 hours. But Heather isn't done. Evidence suggests she also forces antifreeze down Natalie's throat. The child's small body can't survive this torture. Natalie dies. Heather and John wrap the 4-year-old's body and drive to woods near Citronelle, Alabama. They dig a shallow grave. They bury Natalie like garbage. And they go home. DeBlaise's own daughter. Heather's victim. Dead at 4 years old. 3 months pass. June 20th, 2010. Father's Day. 3-year-old Chase is still alive, still in their care. Still being abused daily. On this day, Heather decides Chase's life is also over. She duct tapes his hands to his legs. She straps a broom handle to his tiny back. She gags him so he can't scream. And then she forces this 3-year-old to stand in a corner. All night. While she and John sleep comfortably in their bed. The child is in agony. His muscles screaming. His circulation cut off. Unable to move. Unable to sit. Unable to cry for help. Chase dies standing in that corner. His little body finally gives out. Heather and John dress his corpse in nothing but a diaper. They drive to woods near Van Cleve, Mississippi. Another shallow grave. Another child buried in the woods. 3 years old. For months, no one knows the children are dead. Heather and John continue their lives. But November 2010, Heather's own mother, Helena Keaton, overhears an argument. She confronts her daughter. Where are those children? Heather finally admits the truth. Natalie is dead. December 11th, 2010. Investigators discover Natalie's remains in the Alabama woods. All that's left of the 4-year-old is 68 bones and 3 teeth. That's all. December 8th, they find Chase. 21 bones and 2 teeth. These babies were reduced to fragments in the dirt. Mobile County District Attorney Ashley Rich doesn't mince words. She calls Heather a domineering, manipulative, deceitful, and morally unhinged woman. The trial begins in 2015. The evidence is overwhelming. Confession. Physical evidence. Witness testimony. May 27, 2015. The jury convicts Heather of capital murder for Chase's death and reckless manslaughter for Natalie's death. They vote 11-1 for the death penalty. August 20th, 2015. Judge Rick Stout sentences her to death. Heather becomes the first woman sentenced to death in Mobile County history. Appeals go all the way to the United States Supreme Court. June 5, 2023. The Supreme Court dismisses her final petition. Heather Leavell-Keaton remains on death row at Julia Tutwiler Prison. John DeBlaise was also convicted and sentenced to death separately. Both await execution. 2 children dead. 2 shallow graves. 1 college student turned child killer. Natalie was 4. Chase was 3. They should be teenagers now, living full lives. Instead, they're bones in evidence boxes because their stepmother decided they didn't deserve to live. Case 4. Christie Michelle Scott, the mother who burned her son alive for insurance money. August 15, 2008. Afternoon. Christie Michelle Scott walks into an insurance office in Russellville, Alabama. She's there to purchase a life insurance policy. Nothing unusual about that, right? Except the policy isn't for her. It's for her 6-year-old autistic son, Mason. And the payout is $100,000. 12 hours later, Mason is dead, burned alive in a house fire his mother deliberately set. And that $100,000 policy? It's just part of Christie's plan. She has 2 other policies on Mason totaling $75,000. That's $175,000 total reasons for Christie to murder her own son. Christie was born August 10, 1978. By 2008, she's married to Jeremy Scott, and they have 2 sons, 6-year-old Mason and 4-year-old Noah. Mason is special needs. He has autism, ADHD, and other behavioral disorders. He requires extra care, extra patience, extra love. But Christie doesn't see her son as a child who needs help. She sees him as a paycheck. And here's the really disturbing part. This isn't Christie's first suspicious fire. Her own father, Donald Bray, testifies she's been connected to at least 3 previous fires. 2 fires at the family's previous home on Steel Frame Road in January 2006. The second fire completely destroys the house. The insurance payout? $185,000. Seeing a pattern? Christie burns property. Christie collects insurance money. And now she's bought 3 life insurance policies on her 6-year-old disabled son. The math is simple and horrifying. Early morning hours of August 16, 2008. 180 Seniore Drive in Franklin County, Alabama. Fire erupts in the boy's bedroom. Christie's husband Jeremy is away on business in Atlanta. Christie is home alone with both boys. She claims she wakes up to smoke and flames. She says she escapes through her bedroom window with 4-year-old Noah. But Mason? 6-year-old autistic Mason who needs extra help and protection? Christie leaves him in the burning bedroom to die. She makes no attempt to save him. No attempt to reach him. She just escapes with one son and abandons the other to burn alive. Firefighters arrive. They extinguish the blaze. Inside the boy's bedroom, they find Mason's body. But investigators immediately notice something wrong. They call in the Alabama State Fire Marshal's office. Experts examine the scene, and what they find proves this is no accident. The smoke detector. In a house fire, smoke detectors should be melted, damaged, showing signs of heat exposure. But this smoke detector is lying on the floor, completely undamaged. It's been forcibly removed from the ceiling before the fire started. Everything else at the same height on the walls has melted from the intense heat. But the smoke detector shows no fire exposure at all. Fire experts reach a unanimous conclusion. This fire was intentionally set. This is arson. This is murder. But the evidence gets worse. Multiple witnesses testify about Christie's treatment of Mason. She verbally abuses him constantly. She shoves him. She yanks his hair. She treats him like a burden, not a son. At Mason's own graveside service, Christie allegedly asks her husband, "What do you think about having another child now?" Her 6-year-old is barely in the ground, and she's already thinking about replacement children. Medical examiner Dr. Emily Ward performs the autopsy. Her findings are heartbreaking. Mason died from smoke inhalation and thermal burns while he was still alive. His lungs contain soot particles. His blood shows high carbon monoxide levels. This little boy was conscious while he burned. He felt everything. He suffered everything. And his own mother put him through it for insurance money. The trial begins in Franklin County. It becomes the longest trial in the county's history. The evidence is overwhelming. The insurance policies bought 12 hours before the fire. The previous fires and insurance payouts. The deliberately removed smoke detector. The witnesses describing abuse. The forensic evidence proving arson. The medical evidence proving Mason died in agony. July 8, 2009. The jury convicts Christie Michelle Scott on 3 counts of capital murder. They deliberate on sentencing. The vote comes back 7-5 for life imprisonment. The jury recommends mercy. But Judge Terry Dempsey overrides the jury. He sentences Christie to death. His words are searing. Killing your own child for money by burning him alive is too much to overcome. To intentionally murder your child by burning him is shockingly evil. August 12, 2009. Kristy is transferred to death row. The Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals unanimously affirms her conviction in 2012. The Alabama Supreme Court upholds it in 2014. The United States Supreme Court denies certiorari in 2015. Christie Michelle Scott remains on death row at Julia Tutwiler Prison. Mason Scott would be 22 years old today if his mother hadn't burned him alive at 6 for $175,000 in insurance money. He never got to grow up, never got to overcome his challenges, never got to experience life, because his own mother valued cash more than his life. Case 5. Patricia Blackmon, the longest-serving woman on Alabama's death row. 23 years. That's how long Patricia Blackmon has been sitting on Alabama's death row. Longer than any other woman in the state. And her crime? Beating her adopted 2-year-old daughter to death with such brutality that she left a shoe print stamped on the child's chest. Patricia was born November 3, 1969. By 1999, she's living in Dothan, Alabama. The Houston County Department of Human Resources allows her to adopt a little girl named Dominiqua Bryant. Dominiqua is approximately 20 months old when Patricia adopts her. The adoption is supposed to give this child a loving home, a stable family, a chance at life. Instead, it gives her 9 months of abuse ending in murder. May 29, 1999. Evening. Patricia calls 911 from her mobile home in Dothan. She reports her daughter isn't breathing. Paramedic Eddie Smith arrives at approximately 9:30 p.m. What he finds makes his blood run cold. 2-year-old Dominiqua is lying on the floor. She's wearing only a diaper and blood-soaked socks. She's covered in vomit. Eddie immediately begins life-saving measures, but he can see it's already too late. This baby has been dead for a while. They rush her to Flowers Hospital emergency room anyway. At 10:22 p.m., doctors officially pronounce Dominiqua Bryant dead. She's 28 months old. Medical examiner Dr. Alfredo Paredes performs the autopsy. What he documents is absolutely horrific. Approximately 30 separate injuries cover this toddler's tiny body. Fractured skull, fractured right leg, multiple bruises across her head, chest, abdomen, back, and buttocks. Some injuries are old, partially healed. Some are fresh. This child has been beaten repeatedly over time. But the most damning evidence is the shoe print. Stamped directly on Dominiqua's chest is the clear impression of a shoe sole. Chief Medical Examiner Dr. James Downs examines it carefully. He compares it to Patricia's footwear. It matches the sandals Patricia was wearing that day. She literally stomped on this baby's chest hard enough to leave a print. Investigators find more evidence. A broken pool cue with the child's blood on it. Patricia beat this 2-year-old with a pool cue. Dr. Paredes testifies that while Dominiqua was conscious, she would have been able to feel pain. Some injuries were inflicted while she was still alive. This baby suffered. She felt every blow, every kick, every moment of her short, tortured life. And here's what makes it even more heartbreaking. Witnesses testify they had previously left their own children in Patricia's care. They trusted her as a caregiver. They thought she was safe. While they trusted her with their children, she was beating her own adopted daughter to death behind closed doors. The Houston County jury hears all the evidence. The fractured bones, the multiple bruises, the shoe print on a 2-year-old's chest, the bloody pool cue, the medical testimony about pain and suffering. They deliberate. The verdict comes back guilty of capital murder. The jury recommends death by a vote of 10-2. June 7, 2002. Judge sentences Patricia Blackmon to death. August 5, 2002. She's transferred to death row at Julia Tutwiler Prison. The Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals upholds her conviction in 2005. The Alabama Supreme Court denies certiorari in 2008. And now, in January 2026, Patricia Blackmon is still sitting on death row. 23 years and counting. She's the longest-serving woman on Alabama's death row. She's one of only 5 women currently awaiting execution in Alabama. All 5 were convicted of killing children. Dominiqua Bryant never got to celebrate her 3rd birthday, never got to go to school, never got to make friends or have experiences or live a life. She spent 9 months in Patricia's care and died covered in bruises with a shoe print stamped on her chest. The state of Alabama decided Patricia doesn't deserve to walk free ever again. And more than 2 decades later, she's still waiting for her final punishment. Case 6. Kristy Marie Siple, the mother who sold her daughter. Warning: this case is absolutely gut-wrenching. It involves details that are difficult to hear, but it's important we tell Kristy story. She deserves to be remembered. December 12, 2021. Kristy Marie Siple, 35 years old, makes a deal. She negotiates with a man to rape her 5-year-old daughter. The price? Originally $2,500. They negotiate down to $1,300. Want to know the most disgusting part? The money is never actually paid. Kristy sells her daughter's life for $1,300 that she never even receives. Kristy Holland was born November 23, 2016. A beautiful little girl living primarily with her father, Kristy Holland Sr., in Columbus, Georgia. There's a court order in place. It prohibits contact between Kristy and her mother, Kristy. Why? Because Kristy has a history of chemical endangerment charges. The court knows she's dangerous. The court tries to protect this child. But Kristy violates that court order. He allows a weekend visit. That decision costs his daughter her life. Kristy is in a sexual relationship with a monster named Jeremy Tremaine Williams. He's 37 years old, and he has an extensive, documented history of violence against children. In 2005, his infant daughter dies suspiciously in Alaska. He's later indicted for her murder after confessing during the Kristy Holland investigation. In 2009, he's charged with burning a 3-year-old with scalding water. This man is a known child abuser, a suspected child murderer, and Kristy Siple gives him access to her 5-year-old daughter. For money. The night of December 12th into December 13th, 2021, Kristy allows Jeremy Williams to take Kristy to an abandoned house in Phoenix City, Russell County, Alabama. It's his former residence. No electricity, no water, no neighbors, no witnesses. What happens in that house is beyond evil. Jeremy Williams rapes 5-year-old Kristy Holland. He sodomizes her, and then he strangles her to death. But even death doesn't stop him. He continues committing sexual acts on her corpse. And he films it all. He records the rape. He records the murder. He records his acts on her dead body. All on video. 5:50 a.m., December 13th. Kristy calls 911. She puts on a performance, claiming Kristy is missing. She pretends to be a concerned mother. She lies to police, to the media, to everyone. But investigators aren't buying it. That same night, Columbus police track Williams to a motel. They find Kristy's body at his vacant house in Phoenix City. She's been dead for hours. Jeremy Williams is arrested immediately. The evidence against him is overwhelming. December 28, 2021. United States Marshals arrest Kristy Siple at a Columbus convenience store. She's charged with murder. But prosecutors face a problem. They need her testimony against Williams. So they offer a deal. March 13, 2024. Jeremy Williams pleads guilty. He tells the judge he wants to expedite the process. He wants to die? The trial proceeds anyway because Alabama law requires it for death penalty cases. The jury is forced to watch 11 to 15 minutes of video that Williams recorded. Jurors openly weep in the courtroom. They're watching a 5-year-old being raped and murdered on screen. April 15, 2024. Judge David Johnson sentences Jeremy Williams to death on 4 capital murder counts. Williams immediately requests expedited execution. He waives all appeals. He wants to die as quickly as possible. Kristy Siple pleads guilty to human trafficking in exchange for dropped murder charges. July 18, 2024. She's sentenced to 20 years imprisonment. With good behavior, her earliest possible release would be approximately 2041. Kristy would be 24 years old by then if her mother hadn't sold her to be raped and murdered. At Williams's sentencing, Kristy's father Kristy Holland addresses the killer directly. You don't deserve life yourself. We don't have Kristy, and you don't deserve to see your kids or life. Russell County Sheriff Heath Taylor states, if there's ever been somebody that's deserving of the death penalty, it's Jeremy Williams. He's another type of evil that we in society just don't need walking around. Kristy Holland was 5 years old. She loved playing. She loved laughing. She loved life. And her own mother sold her to a monster for $1,300 that was never even paid. Camrie's birthday was November 23rd. She was murdered 3 weeks after turning 5. She never got to turn 6. Never got to start first grade. Never got to grow up. Because her mother valued money more than her daughter's life. 6 cases. 7 decades. 68 years of Alabama's darkest maternal crimes. From Rhonda Belle Martin's execution in 1957 to Kristy Marie Siple's sentencing in 2024. Different eras. Different methods. Different motives. But the same horrifying truth. These women betrayed the most sacred trust that exists. The trust between a mother and child. 4 of these women currently sit on Alabama's death row. Judith Ann Neelley, Heather Leavell-Keaton, Christie Michelle Scott, Patricia Blackmon, all convicted of murdering children. 1 was executed. 1 is serving 20 years. All are documented. All are real. All are examples of evil that defies explanation. This has been Crime Mystery Desk, bringing you the cases that haunt Alabama's history. If this documentary impacted you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into true crime. And comment below telling me which case shocked you the most. These stories need to be told. These victims need to be remembered. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next investigation.